How are oil prices affecting real estate in Calgary? I honestly don't think I've had a conversation since Christmas where somebody didn't ask me this question. So Karalee and I thought that we just get together and make a quick and honest video for you guys. So I'm just going to send it over here right away. Karalee, how are the low oil prices affecting real estate in Calgary right
Hey, Tim. Yeah, that is a question that has been asked numerous times over the last few weeks and months. I don't think there's very many conversations that happened over the holiday season where somebody didn't have an opinion about it. It's a great thing about opinions. Everybody has one. So I really wanted to wait and hear what the chief economist from the Calgary Real Estate Board, Anne-Marie Laurie, had to say. And we also got to hear Mr. Wonderful himself, Kevin O'Leary, yesterday at the CREB forecast with a little bit of information about how they both felt the market was. Kevin, not so much on the real estate market, but on the market as a whole, investment, all those good things. And it was good to hear. I think the biggest misconception that most people have is that the cost of oil is directly going to affect the cost of real estate. And that's actually not the case. The cost of real estate isn't affected by the cost per barrel. The cost of real estate is actually affected by other factors that do have oil effect, the oil impacts. Those other factors are inventory, how much inventory is actually on the market for sale, net migration to the city, and employment rates. And all of those things, if you take a look at the whole package, are actually in a good place. Everything that they were saying yesterday, in my opinion, is that we're not going to see that market that so many people remember from 2009. That's not what's going to happen. If you remember in 2014, and especially if you were a buyer in 2014, you know the inventory levels were very low. You had to make quick decisions because properties were selling fast. There wasn't a lot to look at. Instead of looking at 10, 12, 20 properties, you got to look at 4. There just wasn't that there. That inventory really hasn't come back, and that pushed us into a seller's market last year, which also pushed the prices up very high. That's what happens when you get into a seller's market and there's no inventory. There's lots of people looking at the same property. There's just not enough for them to buy. We don't see that happening this year. What I will say, though, is that inventory hasn't really come back yet. We still have a lot of buyers that aren't finding that property and getting frustrated because it's not there. So until that inventory really comes back, that's when we see prices affected. But that's not happening yet. And everything that they were saying yesterday indicated that they thought we weren't going to go into a market where it was a buyer's market, which is where we see prices affected, but rather a balanced market. And they were predicting a GDP growth in Calgary at 1.46, an MLS resale price growth of about 1.58. That's going to be dependent, again, on what community you live in and what kind of a property you're looking at, single family, detached, or attached, or apartment-style condo. And we can give you more information on all of that. But it was important to hear that, unless they see oil prices stay really low for a long period of time, that's not really going to have an impact. They're actually predicting that the employment rate is going to stay at a 0.9% increase, and that net migration should stay strong. And again, the inventory is low. So a more balanced market is really what we're looking at, and that's good for people to hear. That's not a loss, that's a balanced market. And I think it's important for people to also think about, what is my property valued at? If you haven't had a market evaluation done in a long time, this is probably a good time to give us a call and let us come in and give you some ideas on it. I think we're looking at a market that sellers are going to have to be more realistic in their pricing. We're going to have to make sure that we're pricing correctly. We're looking at the comparables before we do that, and that we're marketing the properties correctly, and we know that we can do that for you. So I hope that answered your question, Tim.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, a few things that I heard you say, like this year we're predicting about a 2% increase, or slightly under 2% increase in house prices. We've been really blessed in Calgary that last year we were just under 10%, which is kind of a crazy number. My city property assessment went up by about 15%, and I just talked to a guy the other day whose city property assessment went up $180,000 last year. So we're not going to have a market like that again this year, and that's really not a bad thing. It's a good thing for people that are both selling and buying. And another thing I heard you say, there's kind of 3 things that affect real estate in Calgary, and that's employment, which we haven't seen much of a difference in, migration, which people are still moving here, and the third one is consumer confidence, and that's what we're trying to deal with right now. It's still a good time to buy and still a good time to sell real estate in Calgary. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, that's fair to say. And the last point that I think anybody who's done some looking at investing, all that good thing, that stuff is the vacancy rate. Our vacancy rate has been incredibly tight, which has again pushed the real estate market. And while we are going to see the vacancy rate lower a little bit, and we're going to have some more vacancies that come up, and I think that will affect those that do have properties that are investment properties, not in a negative way, but you're going to have to, again, be aggressive in your pricing. You can't be gouging, which I'm sure the mayor is going to be happy to hear. That also is not going to free up a lot of extra, and it's still going to keep pressure on that market for the entry level.
Yeah, for sure. We still have one of the lowest vacancy rates in the entire world, like entire world. So, a drop in oil prices doesn't just correct that right away. Karalee and I want to make a whole bunch of videos like this. Just anything that you guys want to hear about related to real estate. If we can interview our home inspectors with some questions or builders with questions. We even have some personal trainers that are lined up and ready to answer some questions. So send us your ideas, and we'll talk to you guys again soon and make some more videos. Take care, Karalee.
You too, Tim. Thanks.